So we talked about reality in the previous video, and it feels like there's more to be said that can be said about it on a more, maybe on a more granular level. Like when we examine reality, well, if we define reality as what is now, and then we examine that, what do we find? What is about what is?
Yes.
And there's been a lot written about that in the various spiritual teachings. For instance, in Buddhism, reality, one of its aspects is that it's continually in flux, and that from that point of view, it's impermanent. So we could say that reality is impermanent, and we experience that just through things changing from instant to instant, things arising and disappearing, and never to be retained or regained. And in itself, it makes reality an ungraspable, I don't want to say thing, because you can't really say it's a thing, but it's not nothing either. So I like to call it being, that reality is being. And
Yes.
this being is ungraspable, and yet it's evidence. It's in our faces at every instant. So that's one of the aspects of what we call reality.
And do we meet that reality, which is changing, as you say, all the time, and in fact, endlessly? Do we meet that reality with the recognition that it is changing? Or do we meet it with our memories from yesterday, our experiences from yesterday, transferred, so to speak, into the interface with the moment? So reality is always the same and always changing, which is one of the early paradoxes of aware living. How do we recognize reality? One thought there, or reflection, is that perhaps we can only know the false because we really don't know what is real in a sense that we have there's no knower of reality. Reality is, we know that we are, but we don't know what we are. It's like the eyeball can't see itself.
Yeah, and there's there's the idea in relation to that this universe is one of the ways that reality can see itself, or an aspect of itself. And so, and again, it's paradoxical. But from one point of view, you could see the universe as a mirror of reality. So it's not actually reality itself. It's a representation, and that's how it can be known. Because there's no denying this. It's here. We can't say it's not here. It wouldn't make any sense. It's here. It's part of what is, and it has definite properties and ways of being. And another way that it seems to operate is that it's cyclical. There are cycles. There are things that they're not repeating exactly, but it's almost like they're spiraling. So an acorn starts out as it is and turns into a tree, which drops another acorn. Or if we look at the weather, if we look at the seasons, we can see cycles. And if we look in the human body, we can see cycles. So that seems to be another aspect of the phenomenal universe, is that it changes constantly and it seems to cycle or spiral. And as humans, we've learned how to adapt to that in order to survive and procreate and have a human race. And it seems like all of nature is a part of that adaptation too.
And part of that adaptation is our conditioning, that as a child, as a baby, one imbibes, takes in from peers and events and circumstances, cultural, emotional, psychological, otherwise, so that really the mind constructs a set of beliefs which are conditioned opinions, let's call them that, or perspectives, but they're conditioned. They're not seeing what is, they're meeting what is with conditions. And what is not conditioned, unconditional.
I wonder if we can say that the unconditional is actually creating the conditions.
If it's happening, and illusion is happening, but so one does not need to deny that there's illusion, but to perhaps recognize it, recognize the falseness of my personalizing of experience
Mhm.
and my personal reality. It just doesn't exist except right here. If I think I'm Napoleon, that's a thought that I believe I'm Napoleon,
Mm.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Reality, yeah.
So there are lots of there are lots of paradoxes, there are lots of riddles, and you see that in the spiritual literature, how especially in Zen, things like this, where they use riddles, they try to flummox the mind or the thinking aspects into submission so that there can be an intuitive realization or seeing of reality. So that, and then that brings us to another point, that there seems to be the way that we can think about it as humans is to divide it into what they call relative reality and objective reality. So on the relative level, there are humans in the world doing things or seemingly doing things. But on the objective level, all of that is being done by reality itself. And so the humans have this illusion of doing, and that serves the purposes of humans and that whole survival of the species. To have that illusion of doing and free will and choice serves the purpose of keeping humanity going. Without that, there might not be a drive to innovate and create and survive and so on. But there's also the opportunity to to see through that the underlying reality which underlies everything, which is in everything, which is everything, can suddenly wordlessly unveil itself, and the deeper objective truth can be known, but not by any person in particular, but by itself, self-knowing.
Yes, reality knows reality. What we are recognizes what we are. It's the same with beauty. When we recognize beauty, it's the beauty that we are that recognizes itself.
Mm.
Similarly with love, joy, peace. These
Yeah.
are our common nature, so to speak, in our self nature.
Yes, which again has to be seen. It appears to be the bedrock for conflict and all of the dualities. There's this non-dual bedrock, we could say. Bedrock is an interesting word because it's not anything solid like rock, but it's permanent and real. And for me, when I part of my how I think about reality is that, well, for one thing, it's permanent, it's real, but it has this aspect of impermanence. And but the impermanence is also permanent. And in fact, when things seemingly disappear, for me, it's like a return to, it's how the illusion returns to being real through its disappearance. It's something I'm playing with, that somehow in their disappearance, phenomena becomes noumena, becomes real. And so we're constantly, as an experience, we're constantly shifting between phenomena and noumena. Phenomena being the ever-present background, if you like. Did I say noumena or phenomena? Noumena being the ever-present background, and phenomena being this this changeable, volatile, ethereal appearance coming and going in that. And
In
we could
that
say,
noumena. Yeah.
hmm,
In that noumena.
in
Yes.
that noumena,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
And they're not separate things. They're not separate, but intuitively, I feel like the noumena is transcendent. So if phenomena was ever to disappear, it would have no effect on noumena, on being. Being would just be.
On awareness.
Yeah,
You could say awareness is also being.
yeah. Awareness is being.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not dependent on what arises in it. It's transcendent. Because some people, they don't want to go to the transcendent. It's too woo-woo. And so they stay with noumena and phenomena being one and being interdependent. And that's a particular view that I wouldn't argue with the view because it looks like that. But there have been realizations of something that transcends that too, which is the unspeakable.
So when we talk about permanence, it's not like in the sense of timeless, as in eternity is the notion of infinite time. It's actually the timelessness. There is no time in infinity. So it isn't a continuation of anything. It's what is right now in a timeless, almost imperceptible. It is
Yeah,
perceptible, but it's almost imperceptible.
yeah. Well, it's like it's like this right now.
Yeah.
Um, Here it is, yet it's not because it's changed.
And
So
yet
it's
that which knows it's here is the constant.
exactly, it could not be known without that.
That's right.
If everything was if everything was ephemeral and changing, nothing could be known. The fact that it can be known, it suggests that there is something permanent in relation to the changing. And so that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And it's so ephemeral. I kind of get it when people describe it as nothing, because it is that ephemeral. But nothing ontologically cannot be. So it's kind of a wrong use of the term. But I understand it because you can't grasp it. There's nothing there to grasp, so to speak. But yet it's there. And so no thing is a better way of using that term than nothing, the way that we conventionally understand the words. I would say it's no thing, and yet it's still something.
Yeah. The mind's idea of nothing is like an empty shoebox. Oh, there's nothing in it. Uh, and that's the mind's objective. The only way it can relate to something is to project its absence as
Yeah,
a physical absence, as in objectively nothing there.
yeah, yeah. The mind can't deal with it, so it breaks down there, which is fine. Then one understanding goes becomes an intuitional even intuition's the wrong word, but a wordless understanding, a non-mental understanding can arise once the mind reaches that point and breaks down. That can be enlightenment. I mean that's how the koans work. The mind comes to a point where it just gives up and falls away, and then reality sees itself or is revealed in some inexplicable way, because even the seeing of itself suggests duality, and it's non-dual. So it's just the limitation of words and teachings and pointers and teachers. They all reach that limit
Yeah.
and then stop. So when people would ask Buddha certain questions, he just simply wouldn't answer. And Ramana Maharshi did similar things. There's no answer. There's just this is being. It's quite beautiful in a way.
I'm reminded of I don't know who it was, but a Buddhist master who a student approached him and said, is this real? You know, with a gesture, is this reality? And he reached to down and picked up his staff and kind of touched him on the shoulder rather heavily and said, real enough, yes.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
real
that reminds
enough.
me of another story. It's a little bit more brutal. No, not brutal, but the Zen master, whenever the monk awakens and he is enlightened, and he goes to the teacher and tells him, and the teacher says, "Well, tell me about the enlightenment." And the student begins on some lofty level, and the teacher just slaps him in the face,
Uh-huh.
and then the meeting's over, and the student goes away. And this happens for several times. And the teaching is, yes, there's that lofty noumena, but there's also this phenomenal world here, and it's painful, and that is also real.
It's real enough.
Yeah. So they're not to be disregarded. So when people go out on a limb on one leg and say there's nothing here, it's just immature in a way, because that's one point of view. It's kind of like the ultimate view, but now you're denying what's actually here. And that, and that has to be, that's kind of hypocritical to say there's nothing here and then go get a sandwich, right? Or go and have a beer. There's obviously something here. So we need both views for reality to be complete. I think it's something that Krishnamurti touched on also. He was talking about how, as humans, we have thoughts, and these thoughts are the seeds of what we create. We like the thought of a computer that was started out as a thought, and then humans did a lot of work and research, and now we have computers, and that's now become part of our reality. So in that way, humans create reality. Except that it's not really humans doing that. The humans are a part of the tool. They're the tools for the creation of reality. These relative realities of technology and cars and food and all of that. But that's also what he was really saying, was that's not to be disregarded. That's also a part of it.
Mhm.
If we're really talking non-duality, we cannot leave anything out.
It includes the whole,
Yeah,
not part, not just the nothing part, but also the everything.
yeah,
Nothing and everything.
yeah. I've been thinking about that, and been thinking about a lot of things lately.
Yeah.
Like I came to this idea that there's only everything. There's
Yeah.
only there's only everything, and that's what being is. And awareness is aware of that.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a counterpoint to this idea of there being nothing. You know, no, there's everything.
So let's just take that to our present experience right now. Just bring it, bring awareness, bring attention inside. So awareness outside is aware of what? Phenomenal events, activities, sounds, smells, tastes. Those are the phenomenal, we'll call them external, for purposes of recognizing our inner. There is no difference between the inner and the outer, that's for sure. But that is only recognized from the perspective of an inner recognition of what one, of the awareness that one is. From awareness, everything falls into place. Without awareness, one is living in the phenomenal world only. It's just that limitation, nothing wrong with it. Beautiful, amazing, miraculous. But it's not the full, the whole nature of our being. So
Yes, it's well, it's what they call, it's what Ramana called ignorance. It's like it's not that it's not there. It's that's what it is. But if we are not aware of that,
mhm.
like one of the major turning points is to realize that it's all awareness. It's not that there's a separate world out there of objects. That's what it looks like phenomenally. But the understanding that it's actually awareness, and the only way that we know it is through our awareness of it. There's no other way to know it. Even when we reach out and touch the edge of the computer and feel something, it's still awareness. I'm aware of a sensation. I don't know what it is actually, other than it's a sensation. It seems to have a form. And so the awareness is form and formless. It's both. It's our inner awareness of things emotionally, mentally, intuitionally. And it's also this awareness that appears to be outside until one realizes that the body is also part of that vista. And you let go of the body in that realization. The body is another object. And all of the things of the body, its thoughts, the feelings, the actions, all of these are objects of awareness in awareness. So one can let go of all of that. And then there can be that seeing that actually everything is awareness. And in that way, it's non-dual. There's no separation anywhere.
And the I'll say qualities, to use words, because we're using words to describe the wordless, but the qualities of that awareness are ineffable, undescribable. Yet I find words like peace, love, joy, beauty as pointing toward the stuff of our being.
Yeah.
Not to be thought about, not to even be see, the thing about thinking about things is that it has to separate. Words separate, they define, they limit anything, everything. So when we talk about peace, it's not the kind of thing that we think peace is. It's a stillness, in silence, and a fullness in being, in words. And those are just pointers, but each of us can recognize our own peaceful nature, for instance, especially in a quiet moment, which is a real treat if you can manage to give yourself the treat of a little peace in quiet every day. You find in aware living that peace is just where you dwell. It's home. It's the home setting. And everything comes and goes. And occasionally there's a little buy-in to what's happening, an attachment occurs, anger can arise, anything can happen in the phenomenal world and does. But that which we are, our peaceful nature, has a open detachment, receptivity like a vast mirror, and joy and delight and wonder at just simply being. Maybe we might put that card up. I don't know. In reality, in awareness, there's no becoming. The timeless beauty, love, peace, and joy one is doesn't come and go in time.
Yeah, so thank you, James. That is one of this idea of becoming is one of the is an it's quite a big obstacle for people. They kind of there's this romantic idea attached to it
Yeah.
of suffering their way down a path and to draw closer and closer to eternity. And all of these ideas, you find them in poetry and other places. And really, what is now. There's no becoming. Becoming is an idea, and it's based on what we see in the phenomenal world. We see things becoming, plants becoming bigger plants, so on, children becoming adults. But each instant of eternity is complete, and there's no becoming in it. It's a hard one for the mind to understand also, and easy to think about and feel about becoming. It's one of the conditions the unconditioned seems to have set up for us. An anomaly or a paradox. And not to be dismissed either. Children do become adults. If you look at it from time and space, that's what's happening. But being is being, with no becoming, no beginning, no end. So we touched on some some other aspects of reality, and there's so much more that could be said, and so much that has been said very beautifully by people over the decades and centuries. And no less or more true.
So we look and we mostly do not see. We hear and mostly do not listen. But that totally changes and can totally change with the recognition of our being nature. It's very subtle because the phenomena, you could call it mostly the realm of the gross experience. Just in a general way. Whereas the awareness of the phenomena, which is what we are, is a subtle, makes no claims, has no qualities of like that come and go. Its qualities are permanent, as you would say, or as we could say, are infinite, are unlimited. And we get distracted in the phenomenal experience and our desires and fears. They pretty much occupy the mind of the average human being. And it's quite natural to have the aspect of food, clothing, and shelter as front and center in human experience. Even the cells of the body are oriented toward preserving and procreating. That which we are, which does not die because it was never born, is the source of whatever happiness and satisfactoriness we can ultimately experience in the arc of human experience. We love because we are love. And that's not the word, but it's a pointing to our own nature. When you know your nature, everything is transformed.